and welcome to the In the Back Pocket review show. It has been a remarkable weekend in sport. Rory McIlroy, he wins the Masters. Alex Volkanovski, Sportsbet's very own, gets the UFC Featherweight Championship belt. Oscar Piastri wins the F1 over in Bahrain, and Carlton record their first win of the season at Gather Round, all of equal importance. Now, you guys were off there. I was holding down the fort here. How was Gather Round in Adelaide? Because from afar, it looked fantastic.
It was fantastic, and I loved going to Gather Round, and it felt like for a fair bit of it, the footy was getting in the way of the fun. It felt like when the games were on, that's when everybody was like, oh, do we need to go to the game? But honestly, it's brilliant. And take your hats off to Adelaide and Peter Malinauskas, what they've put on over there. Everybody's having fun. The weather was so good as well. You're not going to get that weather every year, obviously, but just a great time to be there. Great time to be alive, Zach Tui.
It's like the ultimate, it is the ultimate pyramid scheme, because you go, you love it. You absolutely love it. And then you come back to Melbourne or you go to wherever your home state is and you tell everyone, do not miss Gather Round next year. And it just builds from there. It's spread like wildfire the last 2-3 years. This year, more people there than ever before, and I guarantee next year will only be bigger.
I'll tell you what, it was so busy. I was sitting having lunch with Damien Barrett, and over the road there's a place called Fugazi. It's the hottest place of all time. Joe and Stephen Silvani went to go in there for lunch, didn't have a booking, and they were turned away. Can you imagine turning Joe Silvani away? That's how busy Adelaide was.
Not in Melbourne anymore, are you, Joe?
I can't relate.
It's a bit nasty.
I've never been turned back from a venue in my life, so I can't really relate to what that feeling would be like. But
you've never got into a venue in your life.
That is true. Life banned from all. Thank you, Scantron.
Not Revolver, mate.
You said something into the group chat which I thought was fantastic. We saw this one coming up on X during the week. The travelling giant. Get a look at this one. Harvey Thomas, 23 games, 12 venues. Scott Pendlebury, 408 games, 11 venues. Breaking the record. They're pretty unbelievable stuff.
Yeah, well, it's just phenomenal that a guy has played 23 games and he's played at more venues than a guy that's played 408 games. So I don't think that's going to help anyone that thinks Collingwood don't leave the MCG, because clearly
it's conspiracy theory.
No, it's just a fact.
Yeah, I was going to say, we know you're really into the conspiracy theories. Don't you start trying to jump onto this one.
Did we land on the moon?
Is it hollow? We'll find out later. Nathan's going to go in depth.
The moon?
Yeah. Apparently there's people living in it.
No.
I got to get off the internet. Anyway, last week we shouted out our good mate Yzda, YZDA, because he had a big multi that got up. He had 30 followers, a humble 30 followers when we did it. Look where he's gotten to now. He's currently sitting at 4,200 followers. The feed's blowing up, so is our good mate Yzda.
That's great. He had a massive $121 multi that got up a couple of weeks ago. He won stacks. 30 to 4,200. Well
Fantastic.
Done to Yzda.
Fantastic to Yzda. But it doesn't stop there, because we've got another one that's joined the ranks right now. And I love the usernames. Kempy's Multis 90 with $121 same game multi, if you don't mind, for Freo and the Tigers. Fantastic. You look at that one right down there.
16,
we can see it in the
10 legs. I can't read that.
Where's all the legs?
How many legs?
I think it's, I don't know the exact amount of legs. How many footies were there? It's how many legs it's been there. But if you want to get ours, 5 leg, caterpillar we'll call it. If you want to follow us on the feed, In the Back Pocket, you've got to look for there. And again, it's not just footy you can find there. Follow us for In the Back Pocket sort of footy stuff. You can get UFC, you can get F1, all of that sort of stuff's happening.
It's not just Brownie that has a feed.
It's not just Brownie, who I usually just shout out. According to someone, Kate and Zach are on it as well. But let's jump right into the footy, because the glaringly obvious talking point from the weekend is Melbourne 0-5. I'm going to save the knock-knock joke on this one, but Brownie, it is not looking good for the D's and potentially Simon Goodwin at the moment.
No, it's not, and they're playing a really slow brand of football. So I did this game live, and the amount of times they get the ball in a go position, which is at half-back, they don't even look inboard. They go chipping around and they try and find a slow build-up. And at the moment, clubs are aware of that, and it's a fast-paced game these days. But Geelong have changed the way they played this year. So I don't see why Simon Goodwin can't change this game plan on the run. Geelong are now more of a handball side when they used to play the same way as Melbourne. So it can be changed. They even changed it in the third quarter. They kicked 5 goals in the third quarter by just taking the game on, and that was the best quarter they've had all year. So Simon Goodwin, to save his job, needs to change.
Yeah, well, first half of footy, they had 7 centre bounce clearances, so they won 7 of them. They did not score a single point. So oftentimes, yes, Essendon were rolling an extra back and Melbourne really had trouble getting around that spare. This is centre bounce. There's no extra back. So their ball use going inside their forward 50 and their connection with their forwards is that poor that even one-on-one, they couldn't score a behind. They couldn't get a shot on goal from 7 centre bounce clearances. So that really needs to change that area of football.
It does feel a bit like the game has quickly transitioned way beyond some of their absolute stars. And it's not that they're still superstars, but their one wood has always been their contested game inside with Petrarca and Oliver. And we're all very good at this game with the benefit of hindsight. And I just wonder now, looking back on last year's trade period, if maybe they feel like they should have made hay with Clayton Oliver and maybe even Petrarca last year.
So the deal was for Clayton Oliver to go to Geelong, and what we've been told, it was probably 2 future first-round picks. So maybe Geelong have dodged one there, but 2 first-round picks for Melbourne, they'd be saying yes please and trying to rebuild their list. But yeah, Clayton Oliver's a good player though. He'll bounce back, but at the moment, like you said, they're all contested beasts, but they're not winning and contested. So Zach Merritt, the perfect man to play them last week. Everybody jumps in at the football. Zach Merritt just on the outside, feeding the ball to him and using it. So it was the perfect storm for Zach Merritt to have 38.
Well, to rub salt into the wound that Melbourne aren't even going to have their first-round draft pick this year because they traded it to Essendon. So Essendon beat them, so they get a better trade pick out of it as well. So if they come second last, like they're sitting at the moment, they are looking at pick number 2 that doesn't even go to their club.
Do you think they should have traded one of the 2 or both of the 2?
Yeah, I think you could have forecasted that they weren't going to be a force this year. I don't think we saw them being maybe as poor as they've been. But I can't see how Oliver value goes up off the back of this year. And it made all kinds of sense at the time, I thought, to let him go.
The top 4 odds, so the bottom 4 odds for Melbourne. If you had said at this point in the season, you had to make a prediction pre-season, are they going to be $1.22 for top 4 or bottom 4? I probably would have sided more towards top 4 with the list they've got, but $1.22, that is remarkable that they sit there at the moment for bottom 4. Do you see them being able to turn it around, or do you think that's even a bet?
No, I do. I believe it's all game plan at the moment, and it's all system, because you've got May and Lever, who are great players. You've got those 4 in the middle, with Gawn being the head of that midfield. Their forward line's always a bit of an issue, but Bailey Fritsch is a man who's kicked 6 goals in a grand final. Cozzy Pickett is a very good player. Van Rooyen, yet to be proven that he's a really good player. But when you've got players like that at your football club, they had 15 players who are premiership players playing on the weekend. So I think it's system, and I think it's their game plan.
Certainly the supporters want that one to turn around. Otherwise, they'll be supporting the Gold Coast Suns, as I know a few of them have adopted. They've told me in the early going here. Patrick Dangerfield has been remarkable for Geelong as they broke the hearts of Gather Round and knocked off Adelaide on the weekend. Just how good is he getting? On the verge of breaking the all-time record for All-Australian Blazers as well. It was ChatGPT just led me in the wrong direction a little bit earlier, but we've restored it. Just having a remarkable year so far.
Oh, he certainly is. But you were all over it in our pre-season. You said that he's going to be playing more time in the forward line, and you predicted it beautifully with what he was going to do in the forward line, Zach.
Well, it just makes all kinds of sense because he is as powerful as he's ever been. Now, he probably can't do it for 120 minutes on ball, but you play him forward and he reserves so much of his energy to be used only when it's needed. And he is one of the most difficult matchups in the game because you might be as quick as him, but you're not going to be as strong. If you're as strong, you're certainly not going to be as quick and powerful. And he had Adelaide defenders panicking. They were giving away free kicks. When they were in good position, he'd find a way of muscling them out of good position. If he plays anywhere like this for the rest of the season, he's going to break the All-Australian tally record, I've no doubt.
It's amazing how the game looks after you. So the amount of times he crashed into a pack the other night, didn't get the footy, but then a couple of them just bounced straight to him. So you do the work, and quite often it comes back and just falls in your hand like it did for Dangerfield.
Well, with the forwards that we have in the game at the moment, I think it's probably going to be more difficult getting an All-Australian Blazer as a forward this season with the calibre that we're seeing than it is as a midfielder. And we also know they love putting midfielders in that forward line to sort of help make that midfield selection a little bit easier as well, but he's playing some top-tier footy at the moment.
This one here, Geelong taking on the Hawks, is going to be a real blockbuster at the moment. The Hawks coming off a very, very tough loss to Port Adelaide. The Hollywood Hawks young, can they bounce back, or are Geelong just going to continue their assault?
90,000 at the MCG Easter Monday. Well, we thought Adelaide-Geelong was probably the best game of the year. I'm expecting this one to be just as good, high-scoring, free-flowing, and you'd imagine Sam Mitchell, he looked angry. And I reckon that Sam Mitchell has got an angry streak in him. There won't be any lovey-dovey stuff down there this week. It'll be, this is the way we play football. If you don't want to play it this way, you can go down and play at Box Hill next week.
Was that an aberration, that game against Port Adelaide? Because they're still sitting at $7 for the premiership. Still plenty of punters very, very keen on them to go all the way. Is that one we just put to the side? It didn't go well?
I think the most disappointing part of it, if you're a Hawks fan or you sort of follow them closely, is they actually got beaten by what they knew they were going to get from Port Adelaide. So Port Adelaide brought the pressure. Yes, there was a little bit of a string that was pulled with Rosie going to half back, but they couldn't cope with the pressure that Port Adelaide had put on the contest, which is how they beat them twice last year as well. They set themselves too big a task to come back from, but I'm with Brownie. I don't think it's going to be a good week to be a Hawthorn player in that review. I don't think you're going to get nice Sam Mitchell Mitchell, and I think that gives us a very mouth-watering contest on Monday because, in my opinion, two of the best coaches in the game at the moment going head-to-head.
If they come out next week and get back to anything like their best footy, I'm happy to write last week off as an aberration and give them a mulligan. If it snowballs into something worse, we can reassess it. But they're a young side. I'm happy to give them a mulligan.
The only positive they can take out of it, they were 71 points down. They got it back to 22, and at one point looked like they were going to pull off the miraculous. Like the greatest ever comeback was 69 points, Essendon against North Melbourne, 71 to 22. So for 2.5 quarters, they outscored them by 50-odd points.
There we go. Well, let's jump into the moving magnets. We've got a new segment coming up here. Some positional changes. You guys have put your heads down and worked out who should be where and why. And we're going to kick it off now. Hoyney, he came to us and said Connor Rozee, maybe not as good as what people make him out to be. I vehemently disagreed with him, and he's starting to play some good football.
Well, I think the reason he's starting to play some good football, yes, we're looking at the magnet shift into the half-back against Hawthorn. 95% of the time on the ground he was playing in defence, but the addition of Zach Butters back into that team. I think Port Adelaide are a completely different beast with Zach Butters playing through the midfield, but I like Rozee off the half-back line. He played a lot of his junior footy actually as a half-backer. He's very good overhead as well, as some of the highlights will show. So his ability to intercept mark, and has this licence. When you go as a half-backer, they gave the licence to Houston last year, and he sort of looks like he's filled that void really nicely for them. They were looking at other players to do it. Looks like Rozee might be the one as to what we saw on the weekend.
Is it a long-term option, though?
I think it is, 100%. I think he's not. They don't get the best out of him through the midfield because I don't think he has the contested ability to win the ball as he needs to through the midfield, especially without Zach Butters there. And I think their midfield balance is better without him in the midfield as well.
If I was reincarnated, I'd like to come back as a half-back flanker.
Why so?
Because it just looks so easy at half-back. Like, he hasn't been able to get near it, and all of a sudden he's banging them from 50, he's having 30-odd. Brilliant position to play.
You'd come back as a jellyfish.
That'd be karma right there. This is an interesting one for me as we look at this. $1.43 for the Swans looks very, very tough to take. Not as much from what we've seen from Port Adelaide, but more so what we've seen from the Swans so far, Zach.
Well, I just wonder if last week we're talking about Hawthorn's poor performance being an aberration. I'm still not sure what we're going to get from Port. Now, there was a huge emotional build-up to this game, and you wonder if that's what was the genesis of the performance, and they're not going to have that same build-up this week. So it's a tasty price after the performance they put out, but I just want to see Port for the next couple of weeks what they do.
Certainly, the Suns are rolling. Bailey Humphrey, one of the reasons for that.
He's a big boy, isn't he? He gets the ball, he's rolled through the middle, he can go forward, he can go back, but at the moment he's playing a fair bit forward, and he is an option to goal. Him and Touk Miller have changed roles a little bit, so they've pushed forward, and I like the balance of it. Inside, outside, he's a big boy, and he's a big part of why they're going well.
Nasiah Wanganeen-Miller also a little bit of movement.
Yeah, he's played a very different role on the weekend. So 60% through the midfield. He's been playing exclusively down back, really under Ross Lyon this year. The 16% forward, I think it was, as you said, Zach, earlier, it was a 6-6-6 issue. He actually went inside the forward half for the centre bounce, got the mark, kicked the goal. He kicked 2 of his goals, though, when he was playing through the midfield. I'd be keeping an eye on him for any time. Kicked 3 in the game. I don't even know if we had 3+ up for him, but he is going to be a serious goal-kicking threat because he can kick them from outside 50 on the run, and they want the ball in his hands.
It's time to put time into him. I think clubs now have to go after Nasiah and put somebody across him. He is that good from half-back. Sinclair's always been the man, but if I'm going to tag either of them, it's Nasiah at the moment.
St Kilda need to lock him in. They need to forget De Koning, give him as much as he wants to keep him at your club, because he's who you can start to build your future around. Give him everything that he wants to keep in.
Pretty hard to tag a player who can play all over the ground as well. So this kind of is making him slightly more tag-proof than he would be as a genuine halfback.
No shortage of cash in that war chest that the Saints have got. But let's have a look at the market movers and a few of our futures that we've been rolling with here. We're going to start with the Brownlow medal market. Who's on the move? Who's on the way out? Who's on the way in? Of course, Nick Dacos up the top. Oh, huge move. Look at that. $7 into 6, Brownie. Starting to play some very good footy. Daniel Hoyney told me Zach Merritt was going to kick a goal this week. Didn't kick a goal, but he still played very well.
And got the 3 votes, Zach Merritt.
Got the 3 votes. $21 into 13. The one that I like there, Bailey Smith. I think Geelong are going to win a lot of games away. They're going 41 into 21.
Might have got the 1 or the 2 on the weekend. I think Dangerfield would have got the 3 for me. So Bailey Smith probably voted in 3 games so far.
The Coleman medal one is going to be, I think, as we go on through this season, it's going to be one of the widest open Coleman medals we've seen in a while at the moment. Jesse Hogan, it was all Toby Green for them. So just the $3.50 out to the $5. Josh Tracy was fantastic. I didn't get my bet in time for 6+, and I was sick after that. $18 into 7 there. I don't think I'm going to get that sort of value again on Josh Tracy. But who do you like there, Brownie?
I still like Ben King for the value at $6 because he's going to play so many games at home. Remember, they've only played one game up there so far, and he's kicked 6 away. He's kicked 5 away now in Adelaide. So watch out for Ben King because he's going to start kicking big bags.
Certainly is, Orty, but I'm excited. I'm excited because the biggest brain on the table is about to join us. Let's welcome in Daniel Hoyney.
Hoyney, 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 Hoyney.
What do we think? The stinger. Well, you know how long I spent in the beat lab trying to make that one up?
What about the Hoyney, Hoyney, Hoyney song?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I've got
Copyright issues.
There's this weird thing about not being sued that we've got on the show. And unfortunately, if I steal an already made song, that's what's going to happen.
But you're changing the words.
Yeah, that's what you do when you make a new song.
Poor.
Okay. Well, we lose that one. Maybe we'll try to work it out next week and we'll jump in. But welcome in Daniel Hoyney from Champion Data. Now, these boffins were off doing everything but work, it would seem, in Adelaide. More time at gauchos than anywhere else. I assume that you were on the tools while you were over there.
We were on the tools on Saturday and Sunday. We had a bit of fun on Thursday and Friday, but no, back to work Saturday, Sunday for the last 7 games of
Sort
Gather
of
Round.
fun to the Champion Data boys get up to.
A lot of red cordial on Thursday and a Friday, Brownie.
The Gold Coast Suns. Now, they're sitting second on the ladder. The away curse seems to have been fixed. Are you buying in to this Suns sort of hype?
Yeah, no, absolutely we are. And I think a lot of the time, we can probably get too seduced by a fixture and be a little bit, hesitant, with, who teams have actually played and how real the profile is. But what Gold Coast are doing right now is real. It is the best profile in the game right there. You can see what they're doing offensively with ball in hand is number 1 in the competition. And right now, after five weeks, it is clearly the best profile in the game. Now, to put that into a bit of context, over the last couple of years, so at round 5, GWS had the best profile in the game last season. They probably should have got to a prelim and potentially could have got even further. Collingwood in 23 had the best profile in the game after round 5, won a flag. The year before, Brisbane had the best profile in the game after round 5, got to a prelim final. So what they are doing is real. The footy that they play is real. It's powerful, and it's footy that stands up in September.
Is the opposition real that they're playing?
Yeah, and that's where I don't sort of get too sucked into it. Yes, you have to take into account who they have played, but I've always been of the belief it's how you play, not who you play, and the how will lead to a sustained success if it's actually in good shape.
This could be the stupidest question that we get on the show.
No, Felix has them all.
It says without the footy 6th,
Yep.
so genuinely, obviously we're looking at points conceded. Is there more data that goes into that, though, to give them that number 6 ranking?
No, 100%. So how they defend the opposition's ball movement, how they defend the opposition when the footy gets inside, their own defensive 50, how they defend the opposition from scoring off the back of clearance and turnover. So it takes into account 4 to 5 key areas, both offensively and defensively.
$2.20. Won't talk premiership odds and get too carried away. $2.20 to make top 4. Can I get a buy or sell from each of you?
I am going to hold.
So it's not a buy or a
Neither a buy nor sell.
Until they play somebody good, I'm going to hold.
Okay, remove the picket from under the chair there. Kate Reese.
I'm going to buy. I'm in.
Yeah, I'm buying.
There we go. Now, Steele Sidebottom. 34 years of age, somehow has found the fountain of youth and is playing some of his best footy at times.
Absolutely flying at the moment still, and what he's done over his last 4 games, he's in the best 4-week period for form-wise that we've seen for Steele in 9 years. Whew. And right now, he's inside the top 30 players in the competition. You've got to go all the way back 12 years ago to when Steele was rated inside the top 30 players in the competition. And I think the role that he's now playing, so the first game of the year, half-back flank against Brent Daniels. It didn't work. Brent Daniels sort of teared him apart in that game. They've then moved him from a half-back into a bit of a centre bounce midfielder, wing midfielder, to help with Nick Dacos in terms of what he's going to be able to do around stoppage situations. And now, over the last 2 weeks, he's won 26 contested possessions in 2 weeks. The Steele side bottom that we've seen for a number of years has been that sort of 25 to 30% of his balls being won in a contest situation, but he's been able to change his game over the last 3 to 4 weeks.
I think their list, who they've got there, the strings that they can pull around him is getting the best out of Steele Sidebottom as well, because there's other players, for probably, you said 9 years ago was the last time he was ranked this highly. That was probably when him and Pendle's 2 of the best players on the list. Now you get the focus going to other players on the list because they have genuine superstars or players that can take the game away from you. So Sidebottom kind of flies under the radar, so to speak, in that midfield and is able to just get down and dirty, do the hard work, and then sort of not get a whole lot of the praise for it on the outside, but clearly his numbers are stacking up.
And I think it's so important for Collingwood for the next 4 to 5 months that they don't have Nick Dacos being inside Nick Dacos. They need Nick on the outside to be able to get his creativity and ball use into play. So being able to find a few additional midfielders that can get to work from a contest and clearance perspective is going to be critical to their campaign.
Keep an eye on Ned Long for us. Obviously played a little bit of midfield last week. Craig McRae was big on him, so let's see how he stacks up in the midfield too.
From an age perspective with Collingwood, I know there's been a lot of flack about them being too old. Of course, they got Sidebottom and Pendlebury who do push that age bracket up. Do you have too much concern with them moving forward of being too old, or do you think they've got enough through that mid-tier of the list that they'll be fine?
There's nothing wrong with being old, I don't think. And I think as an industry, I think we need to grow up a little bit. That 30 years ago, once you hit 30, that was considered, maybe 12 months left in your career. Nowadays, that's changed. The whole competition is getting older. Each list is getting older. The youngest team on average each week is around about 24 and a half years. 10 years ago, that put you up as the fifth or sixth oldest team for that round. So I think we all need to sort of wrap our heads around that the competition is getting older and not to panic too much about that.
You could have played 10 more years.
Well, I should have. Clubs are so good now at monitoring senior players. Everybody's open to the prospect of being rested. Senior guys are often played as the sub. I know Bruce was last night. You can get these guys through an extra couple of seasons playing them the right way. So that's the way the game's heading.
Now, this one hurts me to go to because I'm a Swans fan of George Hewett. Used to be a Swan. He's moved over to the Blues, but he's playing very well on both sides of the ball at the moment.
Yeah, so taggers are coming back into play and they're potentially going to play a really critical part throughout the 2025 season. But I think if you go right throughout the competition and the amount of taggers that there are, George Hewett is probably the only one across the competitions that is able to actually impact the game both offensively and defensively. So he didn't have a role against West Coast on the weekend, but what he did against Will Day a couple of weeks ago, himself was the 4th highest rated player on the ground. Will Day, 24th highest rated player on the ground. 2 weeks later against Nick Dacos, himself was the 5th highest rated player on the ground. Nick Dacos, 19th on the ground. He's top 10 in the competition in contest, clearance and ground ball work, and he's averaging 7 score involvements a game, which is above average for a midfielder. So to be able to shut down an opposition midfielder, like he did with Will Day and Nick Dacos, but then to be able to impact the game with what he does offensively is rare, and he's so important to what Carlton are going to be
always
able to do.
Always the hardest ones to play on, the ones that get off you. So this week they play North Melbourne. West Coast, they didn't see anybody to tag. Will it be Luke Davies-Uniacke? What do you think of Harry Sheasel? Luke Davies-Uniacke disposal line this week. Hasn't been set yet, but I'd imagine there'd be a lot of punters going under.
Yeah, I'd be going straight to LDU if I'm Carlton. I think Sheasel can move his magnet around, whether that be half forward, half back, centre bounce, but LDU is that prime magnet as a centre bounce midfielder. I'd be going straight there.
I'm going to set you with the task as well. Anytime we get a tagger, they've got to come with a nickname. I'm not going to put you on the spot because it's dangerous what could have come out. George Hewett.
Leighton
Hewett.
Yeah.
For the tagger.
Yeah.
It's just because
T-shirt, wasn't it? Leighton to the party.
Oh, there we go. I'll tell you what. I'm going to have to award that to Kate. Thank you very much, Hoyney. We're going to get that stinger fixed up, and coming up next, quick hands. Here we go. Not long to go. Let's jump into quick hands. Hot topics across round 5. I'm going to fire them at you. Nathan, gather rounds should never leave Adelaide.
Should never leave Adelaide. It is the perfect spot for it. We love Adelaide.
Fantastic. Kate, who will be the last undefeated team?
Oh, I'm still back in the Lions here. I think they have a harder draw, so obviously Lions and the Suns. How good is footy in Queensland at the moment? They're coming up to a Q clash of all Q clashes. It's been very one-sided the last little bit, but Lions have Pies, Saints, then Suns. I think they get it done. Suns have Richmond and Swans, then the Lions. I'm just praying they're both undefeated come the Q clash.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Thanks, Brownie. Zach, should Sunday night football stay?
I love Sunday night footy. I want the week to be as long as it possibly can be when it comes to footy. I know some people don't like working Sunday night footy, but as a viewer, I love it.
Good, isn't it?
Kate, did Charlie Curnow kick himself out of the Coleman with 2-4 against the Eagles?
Oh, I think Carlton have kicked him out of the Coleman in previous games so far this year. I think they haven't used the ball very nicely. going inside forward 50. So I don't think he can win the Coleman, though, the way that Carlton are playing.
It was certainly a filler question, that one. Zach, is Harley Reid lost at halfback?
Well, it makes no sense to me. You've got a young player who is going to be a superstar midfielder. Persist with him in the middle. It's not like you've got a bunch of superstars in there who are doing the work anyway. He's never going to be a halfback or
Completely agree.
Play the star in the middle.
How good's the running commentary as well on the answers from Brownie over here?
People like it when you say you agree with them or give them a great point.
You've read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
No, I've never read
I think
the book
you
at
certainly
all.
have. Lee, I've got one for you here.
What do you got?
Is it finally the time for North Melbourne to win on Good Friday?
Ooh, you're not allowed to eat kangaroo on Good Friday. So I think the Blues might dine out on some kangaroo.
That's fantastic. And your George Hewett nickname, do we reckon that that's going to catch on?
Leighton.
Leighton? Because what would do to explain that one again?
Because on his opponent is Leighton to the
Leighton
party.
to the ball, fantastic. Brownie, Kate, Zach, fantastic. More so you two in the back pocket on the feed. We'll see you on Thursday.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.